According to the National Electrical Code, specific minimum working spaces are required around a 480 volts electrical panel to ensure safety and accessibility for maintenance and repairs. These clearances are essential for qualified personnel to perform their tasks safely and efficiently. The NEC defines working space as the area around electrical equipment that provides sufficient access and space for personnel to safely operate and maintain the equipment. The required working space dimensions depend on several factors, including the voltage of the equipment, the presence of exposed live parts, and the layout of the surrounding area. For a 480 volts panel, the NEC specifies minimum clearances for the front, back, sides, and overhead areas. Firstly, concerning the front of the electrical panel, a minimum clear working space of 3 feet, which is approximately 0.9 meters, is required. This distance is measured from the front of the enclosure to any obstruction, such as a wall, another piece of equipment, or any other object that could impede access. The purpose of this clearance is to provide sufficient room for a worker to stand comfortably and safely while working on the panel. It allows for the use of tools, test equipment, and personal protective equipment without being obstructed. Secondly, the back of the electrical panel requires a minimum clear working space of 2 feet, or 0.6 meters. This clearance is important for accessing the rear of the panel for maintenance, repairs, and inspections. It allows workers to safely reach and work on the back of the panel without being cramped or restricted. Thirdly, regarding the sides of the electrical panel, a minimum clear working space of 2 feet, or 0.6 meters, is required on each side. This clearance provides lateral access to the panel, allowing workers to reach components and make connections from the sides. It also ensures that there is enough space for tools and equipment to be positioned safely. Fourthly, the overhead area above the electrical panel requires a minimum clear working space of 6 feet 6 inches, which is approximately 2 meters. This vertical clearance is measured from the top of the panel to any overhead obstruction, such as a ceiling, a beam, or a cable tray. The purpose of this clearance is to prevent accidental contact with live parts and to provide adequate headroom for workers to perform their tasks safely. In addition to these minimum working space requirements, the NEC also specifies other considerations for electrical panel installations. The working spaces must be unobstructed and accessible at all times. This means that nothing should be placed in front of, behind, or to the sides of the panel that could impede access. The panel must be installed in a location where it is protected from physical damage and moisture. This helps to prevent electrical hazards and ensure the longevity of the equipment. The panel must be labeled with its voltage and hazard warnings. This provides important information to workers and helps to prevent accidents. All electrical components must be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions in the NEC. This ensures that the equipment is installed correctly and safely. The electrical panel must be installed at least 6 inches, which is approximately 15.24 centimeters, from the wall to allow for proper ventilation and access to the back of the panel. This spacing helps to prevent overheating and ensures that there is enough room to work on the back of the panel. The specific requirements for working space around electrical equipment are found in NEC Article 110.26. This article provides detailed information on the dimensions of working space, the conditions under which it is required, and the types of equipment to which it applies. It is important to consult this article when designing and installing electrical systems to ensure compliance with the NEC. Understanding and adhering to these requirements is crucial for ensuring the safety of workers and preventing electrical hazards. The working space around electrical equipment must be kept clear and unobstructed at all times. This means that tools, equipment, materials, and other objects must not be stored in the working space. The working space must be adequately illuminated. This helps workers to see clearly and avoid accidents. The working space must be properly ventilated. This helps to prevent the buildup of heat and moisture, which can damage electrical equipment and create electrical hazards. The working space must be protected from physical damage. This can be achieved by installing barriers, guards, or other protective measures. The working space must be accessible only to qualified personnel. This helps to prevent unauthorized access and potential hazards. The NEC also provides specific requirements for working space around specific types of electrical equipment, such as switchboards, panel boards, and motor control centers. These requirements may vary depending on the voltage of the equipment, the presence of exposed live parts, and the layout of the surrounding area. It is important to consult the NEC to determine the specific requirements for each type of equipment. In addition to the NEC, other codes and standards may also apply to electrical panel installations. These may include state and local building codes, as well as industry standards such as those published by the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, i.e. in the National Electrical Manufacturers Association (NEMA). It is important to consult all applicable codes and standards when designing and installing electrical systems to ensure compliance and safety. Proper working space around electrical panels is essential for safety and compliance. By following the NEC requirements and other applicable codes and standards, you can help to ensure that workers have the space they need to safely operate and maintain electrical equipment. This can help to prevent accidents, injuries, and property damage. The working space requirements in the NEC are designed to provide adequate room for qualified electrical workers to safely perform their tasks. These requirements are not intended to be a substitute for proper training and safety procedures. Electrical work should only be performed by qualified personnel who have been properly trained and are familiar with the hazards involved. When working on or near electrical equipment, it is important to follow all applicable safety procedures, including the use of personal protective equipment such as gloves, safety glasses, and arc-rated clothing. It is also important to de-energize the equipment whenever possible before working on it. If it is not possible to de-energize the equipment, then it is important to use extreme caution and to follow all applicable safety procedures. The NEC also includes requirements for the height of working space. In general, the working space must be at least 6 feet 6 inches high, measured from the floor or platform to the lowest obstruction above. This requirement is intended to provide adequate headroom for workers to perform their tasks safely. However, there are some exceptions to this requirement. For example, the height of the working space may be reduced to 6 feet if the equipment is located in a dwelling unit. In addition to the height of the working space, the NEC also includes requirements for the width of the working space. The width of the working space must be at least 30 inches, measured from the front of the equipment to the nearest obstruction. This requirement is intended to provide adequate room for workers to stand and move around while working on the equipment. However, there are some exceptions to this requirement. For example, the width of the working space may be reduced to 24 inches if the equipment is located in a dwelling unit. The depth of the working space is the distance from the front of the equipment to the nearest obstruction behind the worker. The NEC includes requirements for the depth of the working space based on the voltage of the equipment and the presence of exposed live parts. For example, for equipment operating at 480 volts with exposed live parts on one side, the minimum depth of the working space is 3 feet. If there are exposed live parts on both sides of the equipment, the minimum depth of the working space is 4 feet. The working space requirements in the NEC are intended to provide a safe working environment for qualified electrical workers. By following these requirements, you can help to prevent accidents, injuries, and property damage. It is important to remember that the working space requirements are not the only safety considerations when working on or near electrical equipment. You should also follow all applicable safety procedures, including the use of personal protective equipment and energizing the equipment whenever possible. It is critical to consult the latest edition of the NEC for the most up-to-date and accurate information on working space requirements and other electrical safety standards. The NEC is a comprehensive document that is updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology and industry best practices. Failure to comply with the NEC can result in fines, penalties, and, most importantly, an increased risk of electrical accidents and injuries. Electrical safety is a shared responsibility. Employers, employees, and equipment manufacturers all have a role to play in ensuring that electrical work is performed safely. By working together, we can create a safer working environment for everyone.